He lives! He lives! It's a miracle! That's everybody's reaction right now. So I'm just going to talk about it, my opinions on it. First of all, the way they opened it up, it was very good. Having it, in dark, and you hear the walkers, and you just hear, "Thank you," gunshot. And I'm like, oh, they're about to show us what happened. And sure enough, he falls. It is Nick on top of him getting ripped open. Um, and like a lot of people have said, I was really hoping this isn't what they were gonna do because it's very improbable. It does kind of make sense, but he pushes himself out from under Nick and crawls up underneath the dumpster. Walkers do try to get him though, and that's one thing that I was like, they wouldn't just stop, but he does take out a knife and stab the ones that are like right there, trying to reach for him. So that part was okay, but it's just the fact that his whole body wasn't covered. First of all, Nick landed across him like this, which means his shoulders, his legs, that was all showing, and he escapes unscathed. And it wasn't like his head was already halfway under the dumpster, so all he had to do was just push it. There was like about half a foot at least in between his head and the dumpster, which means he's got a few walkers right there, and they see him but don't really go for him. And it's not like this show has never done anything unbelievable before. Um, I'm thinking back to the end of last season when Nick shoots Glenn in the woods, and they fight for a bit after that, and he presses his wound, and two walkers are coming out of the woods towards them, and he throws Glenn on the ground. One walker is on top of him, the other one's right behind it, and he doesn't have a weapon, and yet somehow a few minutes later he tackles Nick, and they don't even show us how he got out of it. It's just like, oh, so Glenn's Superman now? Like, and unbelievable things do happen in the show, but this is one that just, you tried to convince us he was dead just to show us, oh, he's not. And I think people are gonna, some people have already said, if you watch The Talking Dead, they do talk about this, how some people are upset that, I mourn for him just for him to come back. Like, why did you do that? And I like Scott Gimple, the writer, actually gave a good reason. He says, Maggie, whenever she finds out Glenn doesn't make it back, she has to assume the worst might have happened. And he wanted the audience to be with her. I agree. I think, though, you could have shown Glenn and Nick falling into the pile, or even just shown Glenn and Nick go off somewhere, but to show Glenn falling down, showing what looked like it could have been his chest getting ripped open, that's like, we all think he's dead. Maggie doesn't know. He could be dead, he could be alive. And obviously, people formulated opinions, and a lot of people were saying, well, he's not dead, that could be Nick on top of him. So, yeah, a lot of people didn't think he was dead, but when I watched that scene, I thought he was dead, and I thought he was dead for the longest time, because why would walkers not get to him, even if Nick is on top of him? So I don't know. I guess what's to come. I do know, unfortunately, if you don't read the comics, close your ears, because I know, me personally, I haven't read the comics, and it does help me because I go into the next episode not knowing, what happens in the comics, who dies, who doesn't die. But unfortunately, when all this stuff happened, my mom is all like, he's not dead, look at all the stuff I found, and sent me a lot of links and a lot of pictures saying why Glenn wasn't dead. And obviously the fact that Glenn does die in the comics did come up, but he dies a different way than getting eaten by walkers. So for me, knowing that, it's like, I just mourned him I just mourned his death. He's not dead, but because unfortunately I know about the comics, I know he does die later. Well, now I'm just gonna have to mourn his death again. It's just like I, I had okay. Quick analogy: I had this dog. She was like 14 years old, human years, so she was really really old. And in fact, I think she even got up to 15. And at one point, it just seemed like she was done. She was constantly laying around. She you would call to her, and she wouldn't respond because her hearing was gone. And it was just like she was so far gone that at one point I accepted the fact she was about to die, and kind of I cried that night. I was younger, not that much younger. It's a dog dying. What can I say? I cried at old Yeller. Um, but I cried that night and thought, okay, this is it. She's done. No more. And then like a week later, she's bounding around. She's all hyper. She still can't hear well because she's old, but she seems like she's much better. And she did this for like a good year. She would go back and forth between, she's deadly sick, and now she's okay, and now she's back on her death. Now she's okay again. And it was so frustrating to kind of, have to feel that sorrow over and over again. Like you see her one day and she's fine, and you're just like, awesome. And then the next day she's not fine, and I'm upset again. And then she's fine, and then she's not fine. I'm upset again. And that's how I think about Glenn right now. They already had the one scene in season 3 or 4. I think it was 4, when it definitely was 4. The governor attacks the prison, and Maggie goes on the school bus that everybody escaped in, including Glenn, and like they attack all the walkers in there. She's going through, she's not seeing him, and then she gets up to the front of the bus and she starts crying, and she's like, no, and then she starts laughing, tears of joy, and it's just like, oh, okay, so he's not dead. And then they do it again. Okay, Glenn's dead. This sucks. I'm not gonna be able to sleep for a week. Oh no, he's alive. He's okay, and he's just gonna die later. I don't know if I can take that again. I really don't. And so I'm so mixed on this because on the one hand, I'm glad he's back. Stephen Yeun does a great job with this character, and he's an enjoyable character to have on the show. Like they said, he's kind of the everyman. He's the person I can relate to because when he started off, he was just kind of a kid. He was scared. He didn't really know what was going on, and now he's like, he's grown up. He's fought hard, and I can relate to how he was before. So anyway, long story short, I've been rambling on and on about this. Long story short, I'm happy he's alive, but at the same time, I'm hesitant to say that I completely 100% agree with this decision because one, it's improbable that he would survive this, and two, I don't want to have to deal with the fact that he's probably going to die again later. So that's it on Glenn, and Glenn's coming back to life because I need to talk about the rest of what happens with him. After one of the crazy things to think about is that we are on the 7th episode, so we are one away from the mid-season finale, and it's only been a day since the first episode of this season. So the wolves attack, leading the herd away with Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham. Glenn and Nick and their whole thing, Michonne and getting them back, and everything that happened after the wolves attack with Morgan and Rick. All of this is just a day after the first episode. So this whole season has just been one day. That's crazy to think about. But he crawls out the next day. All of the walkers have dispersed elsewhere, and all of a sudden you hear a girl shout, "Hey, heads up!" Tosses a water bottle at him. He looks up. It's Enid. Don't know how she made it out here all by herself past the herd, but okay. But he tries to find out why she gave him a water bottle, why is she out here, what's going on. and she doesn't want to talk to him. And a lot of people have been speculating, is she a wolf, is she not a wolf, what's her story? I think that she is just, I like to think about it like she's an orphan, and if you think about orphans that live in foster homes and stuff, a lot of them have this issue where, they go to these homes and they get adopted or whatever, and things just go wrong, and so they can never really settle down. Mainly because it never truly feels like home to them. It will never. It's always a reminder of this is not your home. Your parents aren't here. They're dead, and so I just don't think she'll ever be able to settle down. I really don't. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to, kind of a harsh thing to say, like you'll never settle down. But I don't think she can. I think she kind of wanted to in Alexandria, but then everything that happened with the wolves, she realized this place isn't safe either, and so she's moving on. She's trying to, but Glenn finds her, and because he's about to become a father, I think that kind of drives him to, get her and bring her back. He starts off saying that Maggie, if she were out here, she wouldn't want to leave you, so I'm not going to leave you either. But by the end, he's saying this is not for her anymore, because I think it's kind of him saying to himself, I've got to do this because I'm about to be a father, and this is my chance to kind of not be a father to Enid, obviously, but take up that figure and that role of, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to have to take care of somebody. So I'm going to work on it with Enid. And that's, they find some green balloons and fill them up with helium. And of course, the one thing that everybody is probably going to be referencing from now on, they send up some green balloons, which is Maggie's sign of hope. But I'm going to stop there because I need to backtrack to what's going on in Alexandria at the time. Rick and Morgan kind of have it out. He has like a. They said on Talking Dead, it was almost like he got called to the principal's office, and it was kind of funny seeing like they got Rick, Carol, and Michonne facing Morgan, and it felt like Michonne's good cop, Rick is bad cop, and Carol's I'm gonna kill you cop. And it reminded me of Good Cop Bad Cop, but with 3 cops, and 2 of them are not very understanding. But Morgan kind of Rick talks to him about the wolves that attacked him in the trailer, and asks, did you let them go? Of course, he says yes, I did, and that's where the argument begins. I like what Michonne says about it's not as simple as every life is precious. She says, it's not as simple as those 4 words, and it's so hard because you kind of agree with her, but then again, I want to agree with Morgan because later in the show, Carol has this talk with Sam, and it kind of defines what's going on right now. Because Sam says, if you kill somebody, does that make you a monster? And Carol says, you have to kill to stop from becoming a monster. And that's where the difference lies between Morgan and Rick's group, is that Morgan thinks if I kill, I become a monster. I become a part of this world. And Rick's group thinks, well, we have to kill because the monsters are the walkers. And if we don't kill these people that are trying to kill us, we'll become the monsters. And just, it's such a dilemma. It's hard to figure out what's right, what's wrong. But anyway, so that's just, it's going on for most of this episode. I'm trying to figure out who I agree with, what would I do in this situation. So yeah, that's what's going on there. Morgan goes to Denise, I think her name is, the girl that's the doctor, and asks for her help. At first, like, oh, is this for you? You know, your arm's in pretty bad shape. But it turns out he's asking for the wolf that he's keeping locked up. Carol sees this and goes to kind of, you know, kind of check on what's going on. um, so, you know, you can tell it's going to be a source of conflict later. Spencer is an absolute idiot. I predict he's going to die next episode. He, in an attempt to get over the walkers and get to a car to lure them away, he like gets a grappling hook and is like trying to shimmy across, and ends up like the grappling hook snaps and he, you know, on the rope swings it and hits the wall, hits a few walkers on the way. They're coming towards him, and Rick, with the help of Tara, saves his life. Tara's like shooting the walkers as they're trying to get him, and Rick is like pulling him up away from the walkers. Rick obviously is upset at Spencer, but also interestingly he's upset with Tara because she like hung off the wall to shoot the walkers. And he's like, you could have died trying to protect them. This may come back later. I'm not really sure, but you can tell that Tara has this sense of, we need to save people's lives. I don't know if she's like Morgan as far as every life is precious, but I think she does realize that, you know, saving people is not a bad thing. Rick also, interestingly, tells Deanna later, you know, she asks, or she says, thank you for saving Spencer. And he says, I could have left him to die and gone and gotten, you know, he opened up a hole. I could have gone to get a car and lured them away. And she's like, well, why didn't you? Well, because he's your son. She's like, wrong answer. So you can kind of tell that Deanna's not liking Spencer either. But I did think that was interesting that Rick kind of is showing that he still has a human side. You know, he's still trying to not just leave people to die, even though Spencer probably deserves it. Which is nice to see. It shows that Rick is not 100% gone, you know, whereas Carol probably would have just left him. And I say that, I don't know if Carol's 100% gone. It feels like she is, though. I'm trying to think if there's anything else worth talking about. Oh, yeah. Ron and Carl. Now, first of all, you see Father Gabriel like putting up these flyers for this prayer circle at 1, and Rick just like tears it down and crumples it up. I think because Father Gabriel has betrayed them so many times that he still doesn't like him. Nobody really talked about that. It was kind of a singular moment, but it might come back later. As far as Father Gabriel and his character. But anyway, that's on their way to show Ron how to shoot, because Ron wants to learn. And just this whole time, I'm like, this is not a good idea. And you can tell by looking at his character, every single time Rick says something and Carl like says something else, you know, to kind of, you know, Rick says, don't put your finger on it until you're ready to take your shot. And Carl's like, you need to be strong enough to, you know, wait to take your shot. And every single time Carl says something, Ron just kind of gives him this look like, really? Thanks, dude. Appreciate the insight. He doesn't say anything, but he gives him that look. And sure enough, he sneaks past Denise, steals some bullets, gets a gun, and before all the madness at the end, he's following behind Carl with a gun, a loaded gun. And I think that's about it. This is all like just storylines going on in Alexandria. And like I said, it kind of ends with Glenn putting up the balloons to show, you know, mainly to show Maggie that he's okay. But as so often it is with the show, I sensed it. I don't know how. Maybe this show has just done this so often that it kind of makes sense. But it just feels like every single time something good happens, it's just instantly followed by complete chaos. And sure enough, the balloons go up, everybody sees them, and just smiles on faces. Maggie's like running, sprinting towards Rick. She's like, "It's Glenn! It's Glenn! He's alive!" And then all of a sudden you hear creaking, and the whole episode, this was done brilliantly. The whole episode they were showing the church and like boards were falling off. I'm like, what is this, like a metaphor for their hope? Like just this is church generally represents hope, faith, stuff like that. And the boards kept falling off, and it kept looking weaker and weaker. I'm just like, is this supposed to represent like their hope, as it comes crumbling down? And kind of does, except I didn't expect it to fall and knock over the wall in the process. And that's where it ends, of course, because you need to leave some time for the mid-season finale. But yeah, just very well done to show hints of that throughout the entire episode. Boards falling off, stuff like that, and you just kind of see it as, oh, okay, boards are falling. That means the church is getting, the burned down church is getting a bit weaker. Okay, but never would I've been like, oh crap, guys, the boards are falling off. That means that building's about to come collapsing and it's going to knock over the wall and let all the walkers in. It's just, the show never really. Sometimes it's predictable. Sometimes it can be, sometimes whenever characters die, a lot of people are like, oh no, not them. And besides Glenn, all the other deaths in the show after, the main turning point for me was when Sophia died in season 2. After that point, it was like, okay, so people can die at any time. Okay then. So, every death, even though some of them were really sad, like Beth and Tyrese especially were, none of them were really surprising. Glenn, when that happened, that was shocking. The only, like, Sophia, Glenn, those were the only 2 times that I was, like, shocked. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. The rest of the time I was like, man, I can't believe they just died, or, oh, wow, that was crazy. But this show hardly ever shocks me. This season, obviously the stuff with Glenn happening was shocking, but when I think about something's about to go wrong, never would I have been like, oh yeah, the church is about to fall and let all the walkers in. Like, they think about, this season, they have thought about such brilliant schemes and things going wrong in the worst possible ways. It's just another shocking moment. This show hasn't not really shocked me that much. And a lot of you may be like, what? This show is completely shocking. You can't guess any of this stuff. Just because I can't guess it doesn't make it shocking. To be shocking, it has to be something I never would have expected. I never would have expected this. Like, there were hints, but not enough to make me go, I got it. I know it's about to happen. And just the way they built up to it and the way it happened, wonderfully done. Absolutely wonderfully done. And it's setting up for a great season finale, mid-season finale. A few things to talk about before then, though, kind of predictions. One, we know everything that happened with Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham. We know that was a bit later. I'm pretty sure they spent at least the night out, which means they're about in the same time frame as everything going on right now. And we know that last episode ended, we heard somebody on a walkie-talkie talking to Daryl saying, help. A lot of people thought it was Glenn, but I think it may be somebody from Alexandria. Now, I'll have to, I wish I could go back and listen to see if I could recognize the voice, but I'm thinking maybe after all of this happens, somebody gets on the walkie-talkie to call for help, from anywhere. So I think that, maybe Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham are on their way back to help out. Which, they've got a huge gas tank, so that may be able to kind of help out a bit. Um, Obviously, Glenn and Edith are seeing all of this from a distance. They see the huge walker herd, and I've actually seen where they were standing. I've seen it. I've seen Alexandria from that viewpoint. If you go to Sonoya, they've got Woodbury. Um, that's the main town of Sonoya. But if you go down the hill, they have the train tracks, and beyond the train tracks is Alexandria. They've got the whole wall set up and all of that stuff. Um, and so I've seen it exactly from that point of view. I'm like, I've been there. I stood there. That's so cool. Uh, just a personal thing. Living in Georgia, it's pretty awesome. But yeah, so just a lot of stuff building up to the mid-season finale. So many different storylines that I feel like are all going to finally come together. And death predictions: Rosita, Spencer, and then the guy that I can't remember his name. He's kind of the balding guy. Abraham took over for him back in season 5 whenever they first showed up. He took over for him. He's the guy that was helping Rick get Spencer back up the wall. But I think I talked about the 5 philosophies, how Spencer's a loner, and how loners either die off or decide they need a team. They can't do it on their own. I think he's about to die off. I think he's going to be one of those. Rosita has this moment with Eugene in this episode, which I didn't quickly talk about it. She and Eugene kind of get into, well, it's mainly her shouting at Eugene. She's trying to show people how to use a machete, and he doesn't want to do it. And she has this line saying, in this world, it's not dying that's the worst. It's living and watching the people around you die. I feel like there's going to be a moment where she's dying and Eugene sees this, and it finally clicks with him. And it may be where she's about to die. Maybe he saves her. That could happen. But I feel like she's probably going to die just to kind of get under Eugene's skin and everything going on. And then finally, I think one of the main Alexandrians are going to die. We've met a few. I'm calling them main Alexandrians. Just we've seen a lot of random people that have died this season. It's just like I have no idea who they are. But I don't think Deanna's gonna die yet. I feel like she's still got a bit of a part to play in this. She may die in the second half of the season. I don't see anybody in Rick's group, like the central group besides Rosita. Eugene may be gone. I don't know. But yeah, it's just I feel like we're gonna lose some people this episode, and that is shown by the fact that they're getting overrun by walkers right now. I doubt Maggie's gonna die. I feel like this baby is going to happen, so I don't think she's gonna die. If she does, that would just be completely gut wrenching. If she died with a baby in her, that would really suck. But the writers of the show are willing to do stuff like that sometimes, so we'll see what happens. But that's it for this review. Let me know what you guys think about this episode and what's to come, and I'll see you at the next review. Peace out.